Everyone knows about the Kentucky Derby. You might think Churchill Downs would be in an elite part of town, but it's not. You might think an area near a major university like Louisville would be nice, but it's not. Both are in West Louisville, perhaps the most dangerous and rundown area in a 100-mile radius. On this drive, we're going to see what West Louisville looks like and explore the worst neighborhoods in this city. The areas we're going to go to are going to be the neighborhoods of Taylorberry, Russellville, Shively, Portland, and Park Hill. Here's the area we'll be driving through. If you live in Louisville, you know exactly which areas I'm talking about. The further west you go, as you get closer to the Ohio River and the Indiana state line, the worse it gets here. We're here because this part of town's home to some very important moments in our nation's history. Today, it's very poor and dangerous and can be viewed as an example of how far downhill our nation's gone. Many parts of Louisville are very nice, and there's some great people here, but like most large cities in the nation these days, things are not as they used to be. Soon, we'll be joined by people who live in Louisville or who grew up here. They'll add additional perspective on why this part of town's so bad and offer some potential solutions. The conversations I had were very enlightening. The day I drove through this area was a very nice one. It was just before Thanksgiving in 2021, and the sun was very bright. It was early morning, and as you'll see, many of the people who do have jobs were getting into their cars to begin their day. Louisville certainly isn't the most dangerous place in the nation. It's somewhere in the top 50 for murders per capita. The population here is more than 600,000 and barely growing. But it's getting bad here lately. Crime has surged to new highs in this city, and a lot of that happens over here on the west side. During the time I drove through here, Louisville had been experiencing a deadly surge and set a new record for murders. Louisville set a record for homicides in 2019, and then a new record in 2020, and then a new record in 2021. And barely a third of these murders are solved. Look at this chart. Because of all of this, Louisville's having trouble recruiting new officers. In 2020, 190 cops left the Louisville metro area. Can you imagine that? 200 police officers leaving in 1 year? A local official said in today's climate, cities like Louisville are finding that the pool of people wanting to become officers is shrinking every day. And that is a damn shame, everyone. In 2020, a year before I drove through, there was a terrible situation here when a black woman named Breonna Taylor was shot and killed by Louisville police officers. That fallout resulted in rioting and lawlessness. There's been a spike in tension and less police enforcement of laws. A lot of people don't go downtown anymore because of the fallout from the rioting which took place after her death. This side of town is also a very poor place. Overall in Louisville, 45% of black children live in poverty. And on the western side of the city, it's much higher than that. Overall, however, Louisville's residents are nowhere near as poor as many other large, dangerous cities I've visited. Do you ever go to the west side? Probably not.
Well, no, some. So I'm a priest in the Orthodox Church. And so I have a multiracial parish and have some parishioners over there, actually.
Okay. Well, tell me what it's like.
There, it's people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, tell me what it's like over there, like with the current state of affairs with the public's I guess their outlook and the way that they're viewing all of the crime and the shootings and everything that's going on over there on the west side.
I do feel like it's calming a little bit, but the atmosphere, especially a year and a half ago, like right around the Breonna Taylor trial, was very tense. And you still feel that. And, you couldn't get away from that if you wanted to, because it was in the national media, and that trial and the discussions around it and discussions about policing really kind of, inflamed that. Still, it's something to kind of note. In the west side, a lot of those neighborhoods were either mixed race or historically white neighborhoods even. And now those are mostly African American in their makeup. And I think there is generally, oftentimes they feel somewhat detached from the rest of the city, or perhaps more particularly, they feel that the rest of the city detaches from them.
How is the city detached from them? Like, what's their, how do they express that to you?
So Louisville's a weird city. It's a wonderful city, but it's also really unusual in that we really are this kind of juncture of North and South. And then, of course, for most of its history, it saw itself as the juncture East and West as well. And so the way that it can kind of express itself is that the food's different. The stores are different. There many neighborhoods really are food deserts. There aren't supermarkets there. There are little small shops. A lot of the homes have bars on the windows. You'll see activity there at all hours of the night. I was visiting someone at their home, and I left at night. And I mean, there was just the foot traffic you saw at night you'd never see on the East End, which is where I live, at that hour of the night. So it's different. The experience is different, and certainly, Kentucky as a whole has this kind of rural image, this mountain aesthetic. We're the butt of a lot of jokes for being Southern culture, for the Southern culture that we have. And so I don't think they feel like that extends to them, people who live on the West Side. They kind of identify more with like Muhammad Ali and that part of our history, which is very much still an important part of the Louisville story. A lot of the musical history in Louisville kind of centered in the West. And of course, many people used to live there who don't live there anymore and have kind of abandoned those neighborhoods and left some of them to decay.
The foot traffic, all the activity that you saw, did you feel unsafe? Were you like, oh my God, like I need to get out of here? Or were you just like, that's harmless, it's just active?
Yeah, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel dangerous. I don't know that I would have wanted my wife to be there by herself. But yeah, I didn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm. So like the isolation, the way that the neighborhoods are designed, the food deserts, the way that they don't have the same services that you'd get on the North or the East End, does that make the problem worse in your opinion on the West End? Is it like something that like reciprocates itself? So like it's a bad area that's been kind of abandoned and isolated, and then because of that, it's going to continue to get worse?
I think it's a real nasty chicken and egg sort of thing that, like, whatever caused it. Now this is kind of, I guess snowballing would be a better metaphor for that. It's just continuing to build up steam.
Mm-hmm. When you talk to the people that live over there, do they have any solutions? Are they like, we just need to get guns and drugs off the streets? I mean, that's a common thing that you hear over and over again. I know Louisville has, after the spike in 2019, then last year they went to another gang intervention program. I mean, every city has one when they are like, okay, we're going to go out and we're going to patrol the neighborhoods and we're going to be active in the community and we're going to talk to people and we're going to try to, go about it that way rather than just arresting everyone. And then of course they did that. And then crime's higher than ever over there this year.
Right.
What's the solution that the residents who live there propose that need to be done to try to calm the place down?
So I haven't heard a consensus amongst them. I think, and that reflects to me that it's a multifaceted problem. I don't think it's just drugs and it's just a lack of policing. I know a lot of folks who live over there are, of course, critical of the police and of just kind of how we tend to criminalize a lot of problems that some of them feel are more public health issues or issues that may concern public policy. There are others, though, that I know that think we need more police, and they're frustrated by a lack of police involvement and that we're not empowering police to do their jobs. I've heard both sentiments. So I don't know that there's one kind of consensus there. Certainly the spike in homelessness and in panhandling in the city has really gotten out of control. So I lived here from 2001 to 2006, and you hardly ever saw a panhandler at the time. Now they are on literally every major intersection, sometimes more than one. So we've had on our church property, we have a campus, and in what would have been my house, the priest's house, but our music director lives there. They had a guy bring up a sleeping bag and just sleep in their backyard. This was a couple of months ago. And we have several times we've had people, we found like camping mattresses type, like sleeping pads and pillows and things like that. We found those behind our compressor that runs our air conditioner for the main church. So we have someone that goes through and checks that every Sunday so that people, and of course we have many things that we do as a church to try to like reach out. We have a food pantry. We're a distribution center for commodities food programs for the city. We partner with all sorts of things, and so like we're sensitive to that, but at the same time it presents a safety risk. And I think that's where a lot of people are, is just not wanting to be heartless, and understanding that so many people are affected by addiction or mental illness and that they need help. But at the same time, if we let them sleep where it's not healthy for people to sleep, and let them accost people and confront them for money, and sometimes desperate people do desperate things, and so I feel that tension all the time as a Louisvillian, and it certainly is worse downtown and in the West End. My wife worked in the West End for about a year as a nurse, and saw all manner of interesting things while she was there. Yeah. Most probably wouldn't be fit for a YouTube channel, at least not your YouTube channel. So, yeah.
So going back to the West Side again, so like you said that the folks don't have a consensus on what the solution would be. There's all kinds of different proposals. What is your idea of what could be done to fix what's happening on the West Side over there?
It's a great question. I honestly think more policing, but the right kind of policing would do a lot. I think I've seen with my own eyes, I've seen encounters with police that escalated where it shouldn't have de-escalated. My first job out of college, I worked with children it was a residential treatment facility for kids who were removed from their homes by the state. And the most handy training I got, and I've used it in so many areas of my life, is verbal de-escalation, just talking people down, right? And I don't see a lot of training for that. They're trained in using force. And certainly I understand there's a time and a place for that, but helping them to talk down people who are escalated, certainly having plenty of resources for people, that would go a long way. And then also just maintaining a presence. But I followed all your videos about the West Coast, especially the most recent one about Oakland. And I can't help but thinking that the more cities, give resources to people and we de-incentivize them from working or from taking responsibility, I can't help but think that exacerbates it. And it certainly is going to attract people who want to continue in that lifestyle. And that's a difficult thing. I think most people don't want to confront is people want to say we need to spend more money. We need to have more shelters, more community services. But every shelter has rules, specifically rules, against drug use and rules of conduct. And a lot of people on the streets, they don't want to live by those rules. And so many times we'll have people come and beg at our church or I'll see them in person and, they'll say they need this to get around town. They need this amount of money, to find a place to sleep. And I'll say, can I take you to a shelter? They never want to go to a shelter. And so And many times they'll tell me they've been kicked out of this shelter or that shelter. It's a difficult thing, and how to serve people's needs without seeming heartless. It really is tough. But I think good training and de-escalation from people in the community, I think that would go a long way. And then just maintaining a presence, and then really looking at the science and not just throwing money at things and saying, where is the data on this? What will actually improve this problem? So, not a quick answer. I'm sorry.
No, it's very complicated. There is no easy answer. And I think it's city by city too. I feel like in parts of the West Coast, they enable, and so people flock there, and it creates this cycle where now you have to enable more people, and then you have to give them more rules because they've been the ones that you're kind of setting. But then in other cities, I feel like the folks are somewhat sort of responsible for themselves, and they just sort of need shelter from the cold, and they don't necessarily need to lean on for clean needles and free tents, and they just need a place to kind of hang out and regroup. So it's city by city.
Yeah, I lived in Sioux City, Iowa for 8 years, and there was a much smaller homeless population there. And you would see the odd panhandler or something like that. But by and large, it was exactly as you just described. They just needed warm places to stay, and food. They needed resources like that. I do think there's a strange dynamic in that Louisville is a very progressive city, just like any city of its size. The metro area has over 1 million people, but Kentucky is a very conservative state. It's among the reddest of red states. And so that kind of, I think, funnels into this dynamic. It makes Louisville, I think, a feeder city for maybe people who are on the outs in other parts of the state or even in the region, and they end up here. So it's St. Michael Orthodox Church. You can look us up, but we're the largest Orthodox church in the state.
Oh, cool.
Which is something. So yeah, for those inclined, and it's an old school kind of melting pot. So we're a multiracial, multi-generational kind of church, and it's like we're the most like kind of foreign ethnic form of Christianity. But they've got this white boy as the head of it now,
which is you.
Yeah, which is me. Yeah, and
is church like the last place that America has that we can all come together now and get along and like agree on the same thing?
This is huge. This really is. Like our parish is. I mean, I would honestly say, like, this is the last true Big Ten, where I can look out on a Sunday and see, I know that person is very progressive politically, and the person right next to him is like a few clicks to the right of Mussolini politically, right? And they're right next to each other. Both parties have completely abandoned the working class. They don't even think about them, right? Like a lot of Kentuckians, I'm maybe what would be termed conservative socially on some things. I mean, that's what the church teaches, but that doesn't mean I'm not comfortable with a lot of that language even. We look at personhood a little differently. Anyone that comes through the door, I don't care who they are, the way that they're dressed, we're supposed to treat that person with kindness and warmth. That's everybody, right? And so this really is the last place where we don't, those lines have not creeped in. The identitarian, I really think identity politics is just, it is so factious. It really is ripping America apart. I think diversity can be a beautiful thing, but I think the idea that diversity, that we celebrate diversity, and that's going to bring us together if we can celebrate it. You can celebrate diversity when you have something that unites you, and every institution has been ripped down, has been taken down, and so people don't trust clergy. And for some good reason, there have been many abuses of trust. People don't trust police officers because there have been abuses there. They don't trust the judiciary. They don't trust scientists. They don't trust doctors. They don't trust academics. And so there is no institution. But what people have taken for granted is that we are going to do a good job of finding identity outside of those institutions. And that's what I hear from people, is that this is the only place where I really get to be around different people, and we just get to be.
Yeah. Race, economics, gender, creed, political beliefs, all of it. Just church is like the last place where everybody could just come together and not have to talk about it and not deal with it and get along, and then like the safe little bubble, and then back out in the real world where we're all divided again.
To come to a place once again where we can just all, we're rich people and poorer people, white people, black people, people from the east side, people from the west side, we can all come to the same place and just do the same thing and use the same language and just be real.
I went to the west side of Louisville couple months, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and to the bad side of Louisville, over by campus and north of that, and tracked through all of the historically bad, dangerous neighborhoods in Louisville early in the morning, like I always do. I kind of like it that way. It's peaceful and quiet. A lot of gangsters out, a lot of riffraff lingering. But you used to live in Louisville. You got family there now. It's a very bad for crime right now, which is part of the reason I went there, to show people what the bad side of Louisville looks like. Give people an idea on how bad the crime in Louisville is.
I mean, I grew up in the south side of Louisville. It's not the worst side. The worst side is the west side. The east side is like the best side. Louisville, I can't even believe how much it's gone downward. First of all, they're going to probably hit 200 murders this year. So they're at 180, 170 right now. Most of the murders are around the same neighborhoods, around the campus, around Churchill Downs. So the south central part of the city and west side of the city predominantly hold all the murders. It's gone out of control. Like violence, Breonna Taylor's situation took place in Louisville. So there's been a lot of just kind of bad things in the air that have taken Louisville. It's a great city. Architecturally, it's beautiful. You have old Louisville. Even South Louisville has beautiful neighborhoods. Big oak trees around Iroquois neighborhood. On the east end, you have beautiful neighborhoods. And even the west end has a lot of architecture and old buildings, neighborhoods like Portland that are historic. Gentrifications came in, but it hasn't changed the fact that it's a dangerous place.
Yeah, is it just gangs and drugs? I mean, it seems like it's like that in every city. That's why.
Yeah, there's a lot of gangs. In my neighborhood of Southside, you have apartment complexes, and mostly those you have a lot of cliques. You have Colonial Oaks, where I'm from. That's a bad neighborhood. There's a murder there. You have the Americana Apartments, which they keep rebranding it, but it's still the same place. I think there's been 7 murders that I know of in those apartment complexes right there. It used to be government, kind of military housing, and then they turned it into public housing. Excuse me. They turned it into public housing, and eventually that public housing was taken over by other complexes, which, private companies. But the South Side neighborhood has just a mix of bad little apartment complexes. And Louisville also has a diverse population, considering it's in Kentucky. There's about 10,000 Cubans. There's Somalians. There's Vietnamese communities. There's Haitians, Bosnian. So it's a city that does have diversity. However, despite all the good things going for it, it just can't shake the crazy gang violence.
What is it about Louisville that makes it so gang friendly?
I think that's a very good question. I think it's a wide range of things. Particularly about Kentucky. I mean, you have Churchill Downs, so you have the Kentucky Derby. People come into Louisville from Memphis, Nashville for those events, and it just connects people. I think Kentucky has a lot of poverty and a lot of institutional lifestyle. Like think about how many people were back in the day were on government housing. So it's part of the culture of the people to just kind of depend off the government. You used to have a bunch of housing projects in Louisville. You had Park Duval, you had Clarksdale, you had Iroquois, all these housing projects throughout the entire city. Louisville starts to get rid of the housing projects. Now, these housing projects, a lot of them had their own cliques and their own gangs. Some were blood affiliated, some were Crip, some were other neighborhood gangs. And when when the city of Louisville started to demolish the projects, the people that were in the projects could now live in regular neighborhoods. So you had all these people that grew up in these generation after generation grew up in the housing projects, Clarksdale, Iroquois. Now those people are pushed into regular neighborhoods. And that's really when the violence in Louisville kind of took another level, because now you have people outside of their neighborhoods. I mean, some people in those neighborhoods never left the city of Louisville, never left the state of Kentucky. You're right across the Ohio River. There's people there who had never crossed the Ohio River to be on the other side. Now you got these people that generation after generation are from certain neighborhoods, and they're pushed now into other neighborhoods with different gang affiliations and different neighborhood cliques. And that's really where the violence in Louisville took off, that the people from the projects were displaced and just spread throughout the whole city.
So you get kicked out of your projects and you are displaced, and so that means go grab a gun and like shoot each other? I don't get it.
Well, imagine this, now you move into a different neighborhood, and in the projects, they're really tight-knit communities. So you have everybody there knows each other, works together, protects each other. Now you're in a different neighborhood and you went to a house and across the street there's somebody else selling products. That's their neighborhood now. So, basically displacement of entire neighborhoods and forcing those people into other neighborhoods kind of fragmented gangs, and it brought tensions that were already existing between different groups to the life,
Yeah, no, I get you. It's like when you as a kid, when you'd put like a bumblebee or a wasp in a cage with a bunch of ladybugs, you shake it up and they attack each other. I did not do that.
Yeah, they shaked up Louisville for real, and then you have different communities. You have Cubans, you have Somalians, you have Bosnians, a little bit of Haitians. You have all these other smaller communities, and they click up. You have to click up. I mean, when you look at my teeth, I've been fighting in Louisville since we were little. I mean, my bottom row's straight, top row's messed up, nose is messed up, so you can tell you how to fight every single day. As soon as I moved into Louisville, Kentucky, we landed in government housing. My mother was like, we're not going to live here. So we rented a house. So the Cuban community back then was in the projects, Americana apartments, right? Which was government housing. But my mom was like, we're not going to live here. So she rented a house in a Vietnamese neighborhood in Southside. Back then it was Vietnamese. So my neighborhood, like the Vietnamese people, they had cliques, Asian boys and other gangs that were fighting between each other. So there was drive-bys all the time between them. Really, the Vietnamese didn't beef too much with the Cubans, but I had to go to a bus stop. It was in front of Colonial Oaks. In Colonial Oaks, there was a Bosnian clique, and I had to fight them every single day. Like, my bus ride was a fight from Louisville. And the horrible thing about Louisville is that they have a desegregation program where if you live on the south side of the city, for example, like in my case, I lived in the south side of the city. We had to ride a bus to the center of the city, from the center of the city, transfer to another bus, and I actually went to school in the West End. I went to school off of Muhammad Ali Boulevard. So even though I lived in the south side of the city, I went to one of the most inner city schools you could have. I went to Whitney Young Elementary, which is in the West End. So because of their desegregation thing they had going on, they would bus kids from the suburbs into the hood and kids from the hood into the suburbs so that the school system wouldn't be segregated geographically. So even though the city's geographically segregated, then the school system isn't, which was a great thing because I think it gave kids in the suburbs an opportunity to appreciate, what people in the inner city get to live like. And it actually worked out pretty well in the sense that it made Louisville a more progressive place than other cities in the South. So there were benefits to the desegregation of the schools. But for me, it was horrible. I mean, think about it. It took me like 2 hours to get to school. And along the routes, there was train tracks. So sometimes the train would get in the way, and we wouldn't start class till 12 in the afternoon. So I think that the school system in Kentucky is really bad. It's horrendous. I mean, I was in 4th and 5th grade in West Louisville, and there was kids that barely knew how to read already. And now, like, my little niece is 4, and she knows starting to learn how to read. You got kids in Kentucky back then, in my age, that in 4th and 5th grade, we're still trying to learn how to read because the schools are so bad. Instead of teaching the kids how to read, the parents do nothing at home for the students. So the students go to school, and the teachers are pretty much babysitting them at a point where they're not getting. It's almost like the school system's like babysitting your kids. They're not really learning anything, and there's so many bad kids that it slows down. It's almost like from a young age they're trying to hold back everybody else. Everybody's trying to hold everybody else back, and it slows down the ability of the school system to teach kids effectively. Not only that, but the desegregation thing means that you were on a bus 4 to 5 hours a day. I mean, think about your young kid, a kindergartner, spends 4 to 5 hours a day on a bus.
Is it still like that there? Is it still segregated? Is it still, do the schools still suck?
I don't know exactly what they're doing as far as the desegregation program right now in Louisville, but in my generation, when I went to school in Louisville, they did it. The West End is still predominantly black. The black community has also shifted to South Louisville. So South Louisville used to be more diverse and white with diversity. Now South Louisville's become black as well. So it's almost like the west side of the city is black and the east side is white. And that's kind of Louisville right now. But I don't think it's as racist and backwards as other cities in the South. I think it's a little bit more progressive.
Yeah, that's good. Charlotte's also pretty segregated. Still, it's a nice city, low crime, somewhat, but yeah, it's pretty much black side, north side, white side on the south side, sort of. It's the way it is. I thought gangs, Bloods and Crips and all this stuff. I mean, I'm reading about Louisville's crime and how they're having trouble with 200 murders and gangs, Crips, Bloods. East side, west side. Like, I thought that was like a 90s thing. I know there's still gangs, but when are the Bloods and the Crips just gonna like knock it off and get a life? It's
very relevant today. I wonder how, because I also thought that would be something that would fade away with my generation and the generation before that. I think the social media has really promoted gang. The music industry has promoted violence and gang culture to kids who would otherwise not really be involved in that lifestyle. It's still present in the prison system, in the jails, and a lot of the young kids go into those programs and they pick that up there. It is much relevant today. Now, today, even different cliques will beef with cliques of their own sets, so like Crips could be beefing with other Crips. Bloods and Crips don't always have to be enemies. They could be allied. They can even align together against another gang. It's just cliques and sets, and there's a lot of it out there right now. I thought it would disappear, and it's not about blue or red anymore. It's more just the complexity of neighborhood associations. But there's larger social problems in the United States that go beyond just your community. I mean, like I said, Louisville's got these problems. Memphis has these problems. All these cities in this region of the country are struggling with the same problems, and they all had the increase in crime together. So it's a national problem. It's really sad what's going on there, and I don't see an end in sight. And with affordability, I've come to the conclusion that like cities that are affordable, like Louisville and Memphis, there's a reason why they're cheaper. When a place is desirable, it's more expensive. Like where I live now in Fort Myers, it's expensive, but it's better. And if you really want to put your family in a better place, like I know you get this question a lot on your channel. I get it a lot. People want affordability. The problem with affordability with these cities like Louisville and Memphis and places like that is, yeah, they're affordable, but there's a reason why they're affordable. And I learned that lesson very well in Alabama. as well. Yes, it's in a very affordable state. There's a reason why it's affordable. So if you want your family to be in a safe place, the clear answer is to live in a place that's more expensive.
Hey everyone. So it's pretty clear by now that elected leaders aren't going to help you. If you don't like what you saw in this video, demanding change won't work. You're going to have to do it on your own. If you want to be safe and want your community to be a place where people want to live, you're going to have to clean the place up yourselves. You're going to have to work with your friends and neighbors to lower crime. Politicians clearly don't care as much anymore. It's up to us.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.
And are you looking to move and need advice? I do consulting. That's right. I'll sit down and talk about where the next perfect place for you and your family should be. I do it all the time. Together, let's find you a new home that's safe and checks all your boxes. You can get my email in the description to find out how I can help you find your perfect relocation.